Welcome once again to Speaking of Strong Style, the show where we discuss the news, events, and issues surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm Steven Conway. With me, as always, the snarling Jeremy Finestone. We are ready for another week of talking about the events that have been going on, a lot of them lately, heavy schedule in New Japan, part of the Road to Dontaku series, which has been busier than most road series. We've had quite a few interesting angles and title matches. We're going to get into those. And we're going to talk about Dontaku and preview that. But we've had some title matches, some changes. We have more title matches to come. It's been a very interesting week, Jeremy. Overall, how did you feel about what you saw?
Felt like the information superhighway. There was so much information coming to me. There were so many matches. There was so much stuff coming from left and right. What was happening on the 27th? What was happening on the 29th? Satsumi no Kuni. Oh my goodness, that was quite the show itself. I heard you went and saw a show on Broadway, and now we all saw almost an off-Broadway match. So you saw two Broadways in a couple of days, maybe exactly. A third, who knows? But it's been wild, man.
It's been very busy, and I am traveling, as you can tell. Background's a little bit different. I'm coming to you from a disclosed location. I'll tell you exactly where I am. I'm in New York City, taking a little trip out here to New York. I have a midtown. I would show you the wonderful view this hotel room has, except it's facing west, and if I let any light in whatsoever, I become a silhouette. So this won't matter to the people on the podcast, but anybody watching here on YouTube, I would not be able to show you my beautiful view that we paid a lot for, but nevertheless, it blinds the camera completely right there. So Brad and Jeremy are there. I'm very happy to see you guys. Yeah. Oh, Brad. Yeah. I came here to visit a little bit and see some shows, eat at some really good restaurants. Went to the Guggenheim Museum today, so I'm cultured as hell. So ready to talk some wrestling.
You know what's amazing is you went to New York from Texas. I'm going to Vegas from California. It looks like Moxley's going from AEW to New Japan. So everybody's going everywhere. Let's talk about that. How about that? Moxley's back.
Moxley's back. He's going to be at Resurgence at Long Beach on the 21st, May 21st. Big show there at the Pyramid, I believe, right? In the Walter Pyramid in Long Beach. So I
love that place. That place is so cool.
It's the new home of PWG mostly, isn't it? Am I correct about that? Or is that the Globe?
That's the Globe.
The Globe. Yes. Okay, the Walter Pyramid's a different building, but as I was saying that sentence, I was like, wait a minute, I think that's the Globe for them. And so, the Walter Pyramid, fairly a decent-sized building there, and Jon Moxley's going to be a part of this show. We don't have an opponent for him or a situation for him yet, but he's going to be there. Listed is still Will Ospreay and Hiroshi Tanahashi, two guys coming back from injury, and we're going to get to Tanahashi. He's a big part of Dontaku, not being on any of the cards physically, but his presence was heavily felt. And then a very interesting thing, another new title, because wrestling doesn't have nearly enough of those, Jeremy, the new Strong Women's Championship. We'll talk about that as that show approaches, because I don't understand why this exists. But we're going to do it. It's Mercedes Mone, Stephanie Vaquer, whose last name I might be mispronouncing. I apologize, Stephanie, if I am. And then on the other side of the bracket, so it's a semifinals and a finals, a 4-woman, one-night tournament matches. And on the other side, Willow Nightingale from AEW, who's been terrific in her appearances for that company, and Momo Kogo, who is part of the Stars faction for New Japan Pro Wrestling, coming off a concussion herself. So the people there in Long Beach, you're going to be seeing some folks who unfortunately have had to take time off for injury. But Momo Kogo, one of the Stars faction, that's Mayu Iwatani's group, the current IWGP champion. So I guess the storyline there is that one of her underlings there in Stars going after this new belt. And we'll see how that goes. So that's all we have for that so far.
So apparently it's supposed to just be considered an invitational. One of the members of each of these rosters are all to come in and compete for this new strong title, which you could then presumably assume that those are all the places that it would be defended at. You know, potentially CMLL, potentially Ring of Honor, AEW, where Willow Nightingale is at. Mercedes challenging for the title elevates it. It seems a little unnecessary to have it. I guess because there's a men's strong title and a men's IWGP title, they wanted to keep the mirror relation. But there was a lot of head scratching on this one, and they're going to have to do a lot to establish this title with a high prominence. My money's on Willow Nightingale. I think she's in that position to get a title and both elevate it. But honestly, it's up for grabs.
Yeah, it's a strange thing because the reason the IWGP Women's title was created in the first place was to have a women's presence on the major New Japan shows because Bushiroad likes the idea of bringing those two audiences together. And apparently, from what little market research does leak out of Japan, you don't get a lot of this, but the audiences for Stardom and New Japan have overlap. There is overlap, but surprisingly separate. Apparently, everyone was a little bit surprised at just how separate those fan bases are. So the idea of getting Stardom fans to come to New Japan and New Japan fans to come to Stardom makes perfect sense. Understand why they're doing it. The other side is, of course, those North American-based shows, which they're planning on doing more of, where you would want a woman's presence because it's just strange not to have it in the United States. And so that was what the IWGP title was for. So that was going to be the belt, we thought, that was going to be defended on Strong and these shows here at which they tape Strong. It's a little bit weird that now we have two belts that are kind of doing the same thing, unless the plans have changed a little bit and they have decided to keep the IWGP title in Japan more and make this kind of an underneath thing. It's strange. I'm not totally sure why they're doing it. It doesn't seem to have a different function. Unless IWGP in Japan totally.
Hypothetically, what do you do with this title if Colin believes that it is stupid and we all know who's winning this title? He believes it's Mercedes.
Yeah.
If that happens, what do you do with it? Is she still someone that you bring in to AEW? Do you have Mercedes with the Strong title premiering in AEW or anywhere else? Like, if she's going to have that title.
Well, the Strong title isn't necessarily going to be on AEW shows, and neither is
Mercedes.
It
could be. It could. That's not necessarily true. These titles are appearing everywhere. Aussie Open will have the Strong titles in AEW at some point. So there is a perception factor that you have to think about going into it, because these titles are starting to pop up everywhere as you go. Kenta could show up at AEW at any point with that Strong title with some degree of relevance in which they try to build it. Do you think that they would be successful in getting that women's Strong title over at a higher level, or do you think that it's perpetually going to remain at a lower level, and would that be damaging to Mercedes if that were the case?
Well, the Strong title is clearly an underneath title, and on both the men's and the women's side. Kenta has it right now, and he's obviously a very legitimate guy, and everybody takes him seriously. But that championship is not considered up there with the Never title. It's not considered up there with some of the other championships. I would say even the TV title is above it as far as the pecking order goes. So it's, I guess it's just an underneath women's title right now, which maybe they can do something with it. I always thought the whole point of this was to have something on the North American shows. I guess this is just going to be it. So, and in that case, it looks like it's got to be either Monet or Willow, just because Momokogo is not going to stay in the U.S. and hit every Strong taping. I mean, she could, but I don't anticipate that. I anticipate her being more on the Stardom roster. And so, Willow does make a lot of sense. The question is how. And this is the big question, isn't it, Jeremy? If Willow Nightingale takes this title, you don't beat Mercedes clean twice in a row, do you?
No. How do you
angle your way into this?
You have the Forbidden Door build come out of this match. Whoever Mercedes might potentially face at Forbidden Door in some way, shape, or form, you parlay out of this match. Because of the Ring of Honor, because there's already a Tony Khan influence. It's not completely out of the question. And there will be a demand for her to be on this show. And it's starting to increasingly look like she may not be in WWE. So if it doesn't happen at Forbidden Door, there are only a few other dates where you potentially bring her in for a blow-away event, which is what you have to do. You have to bring her in for a blow-away event.
Yeah, because she's not cheap. And it would kill a lot of the gate at any show. Mercedes does not work cheap, nor should she, by the way. And so it's not going to be something where she's going to be doing small shows there. It's got to be
the only time I could expect her to work for a deal is Multiverse United 2 against Trinity Fatu. That's really my biggest takeaway of that match may eventually happen. It may eventually happen right there. because I think she wants to give Trinity the rub in some way, shape, or form, and she'll make it happen. Other than that, all bets are off of what she could do, but be conservative how many times you beat this woman. If you put her in a tournament that she doesn't win, you better have a very good reason why she's not winning.
Well, I think they know that. The one thing about New Japan is that they do not overjob their stars, and that's something they're very careful about. And of course, for Mox is coming to get his win back from Yano, according to Brad Reeder. There, that's an interesting thought there. That's a possibility, as a matter of fact. But we have no idea who Mox is facing.
We don't even know much of a card other than Ospreay and Tanahashi.
No, that's it. And the women's thing.
So that takes up four matches of the card.
And that's not anything to surprise you. Of course, a lot of titles have yet to be decided. Dontaku is going to have a lot to do with that, and of course, New Japan doesn't announce things in advance of big shows just because those tend to have consequences toward future cards. So they probably are keeping things pretty quiet on that one until after Dontaku.
Also, a lot of the undercard is going to be in the middle of the Best of the Super Juniors. They have like 4 or 5 matches underneath that have people all over the place in the Best of the Super Juniors. So they got to add out the card elsewhere.
Yeah, and Colin is asking, do they really do Monet versus Willow at Forbidden Door? And he says that doesn't seem big enough. No. We don't think they're going to do that. What we think they're going to do is what Jeremy is saying they might do is have whoever Monet is going to face at Forbidden Door come out and cause her to lose to Willow. Willow then moves on with the strong title, whereas Mercedes, instead of chasing that strong title, is chasing whoever screwed her out of it. So it becomes...
It's not elegant, but it's,
just a grudge match. That's his theory on that. I'm just kind of baffled that the thing exists. So I'm still kind of wrapping my head around.
Completely inelegant solution.
But yeah, so there we go. So should we talk about Road to Dontaku?
Let's talk about the Super Juniors first.
You want to do the lineup for Super Juniors? Yeah, let's do that.
Let's talk about that.
Let's bring that up. And so, yeah, we've got a lot of turnover this year, and I do think it is an upgrade. You felt it was an upgrade, too. Mm-hmm. You like this group we've got to go on.
Yeah, I was looking at it, and there were a few people last year, and I'm going to be kind when I say this, that kind of had a stink of geek when they came in, and they were able to shrug it off afterwards. And when I look at this lineup, I do not feel that way about any of the guys coming in. You got Dan Maloney from Rev Pro coming in that's new. Mm-hmm. You've got Kevin Knight, who was not in it last year, but my goodness, has he made a name for himself this year.
He was Mike last year.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got Mike Bailey as the Impact representative, replacing Ace Austin. You've got Kushida taking the place of El Phantasmo. And then I believe we have Leo Rush, who is taking the place of Alex Zane this year. All in all, I believe a tremendous upgrade. I was trying to suss out a number of things about this lineup, and I kind of get the vibe that Titan and Bushi might face Kevin Knight and Kushida afterwards. Clark Connor seems like a finalist to go very, very far in this tournament this year. Mike Bailey and Leo Rush, that in the A block with Hiromu Takahashi. That is an incredibly loaded lineup on that A block.
Let's run down these blocks very quickly for anyone who's listening here can't see the graphics. But in the A block is Hiromu Takahashi, current junior heavyweight champion and possible heavyweight champion. We won't know until after Dontaku. But Hiromu Takahashi's in A block along with TJP, Kushida, Ryusuke Taguchi, Taiji Ishimori, Sho, Doki, Titan, Leo Rush, and Mike Bailey. Moving over into the B block is Francesco Akira, El Desperado, Bushi, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, Yo, Robbie Eagles, Master Wato, Clark Connors, now with Bullet Club, of course, and Kevin Knight and Dan Maloney. So that's who is in each block. Now, we're going to get a lot of information on where they might be going with this tournament at Dontaku. Reason being, at Dontaku, they're going to announce the cards. You always get an idea of what the lineups are on the first night and the last night, who's going to be heavily involved in the finish right there. So we'll find out a little bit more about the key matches on the first and last night. It's going to tell us a lot about who's going to be in on the finals there.
There's a lot of people that think Speedball is going to win this thing.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. And I just hope we get no Taguchi ass this year. For Brad Reeder doesn't want to see Taguchi's rear end. Yeah, that is plenty old with me too. That whole act.
Do you have a gut feeling pick to win this thing at this point?
Not yet. I want to see. I want to see how they come out with it. There's some things that are. I keep waiting for it to be El Desperado's year, but now that I'm looking at these lineups, it's very possible. I think El Desperado is going to be in it on the final night. I think that our final night of block play, for instance, if he doesn't make the finals, I think El Desperado will be the one that must be overcome in order to get into the finals. So, but you look at who else is coming out of Block B right there. It depends on how hard they want to push Clark Connors. It depends on how hard they want to push Robbie in his new role with TMDK. I don't really see Master Wato, Kevin Knight, Kanemaru, and Bushi, that whole set, going to the finals or winning the thing. But as far as the others go, you really can't cut anybody out of it. And on the other side, Hiromu's going to be involved until the very last minute. Bailey, don't count out Lio Rush either. And so I'm very interested to see what the block matchups are and the order, because that's going to tell us a lot there.
So if you really looked at everyone that Hiromu Takahashi has defeated in the last 5 months, Lio Rush, Taiji Ishimori, a lot of guys on here. There's a lot of guys that you can cross off as matchups that we've already seen. For a lot of reasons, I'm circling Clark Connors as the guy to win the B block, potentially beat Mike Bailey or Lio Rush after they eliminate Hiromu Takahashi from it. And Clark Connors is kept away from Hiromu until Dominion, until that match happens. Because that is a different junior heavyweight that Hiromu has been facing up until this point. And it makes a lot of sense to do that matchup. And given all the momentum that they have, I'm circle, dotting Clark Connors for this one, because I feel strongly about that one.
And Hiromu is so interesting. The success in Super Juniors. He has won 4 of the last 5 tournaments, and the last 3. So he's going for 4 in a row. Don't think he's getting it. I think now especially now that he's entering as champion. So let's see what some of the comments are on this one. Brad says, "I love the lineup. I just hope we talked about that one. No Taguchi, but we agree, Brad. Interesting to see how Dan Maloney fits into United Empire. Yeah, me too. I like the dude. I think it's a good fit for him. And I would replace Taguchi with Ace Austin. That comes from Colin, but that's just me. You could replace Taguchi if he's gonna be goofy Taguchi, and it looks like that's all he is these days anymore, and you don't really get serious Taguchi all that much. Then you can replace him on any card right there. He's the junior heavyweight Yano, and I'll say no.
Fun fact: when I compared the render from the Best of Super Juniors 29 and the Best of Super Juniors 30, Ryusuke Taguchi was the only one that was repeated.
Yeah. Oh boy, how about that? Yeah, and Brad says, I think we can get Clark versus Leo in the final. That'd be an interesting match. I'd like to see it. And let's go Doki. I think he can have a great run this year. At least I'm hoping. But A block is stacked. It really is. There's some really interesting names over in that A block. And I'm in the tank for Doki right there. And he does seem to be on upward trajectory. And we're going to talk a little bit about the key matches from this last week. His match with Naito was very, very good. And not to be discounted is that Naito in the post-match comments said that a lot of very nice things about Doki, and he doesn't always do that. He doesn't always make post-match comments in the first place. But this time he kind of made a point of talking about how far Doki had come, how he must be pretty tough to survive all those years in Mexico on the Indies and all that. So seeds are being planted. I don't know if this tournament is the time to launch him or not. I'm not saying it's not. It's not saying it is. But they don't do stuff like that by accident. Him winning Naito's respect is part of the story of Doki coming up.
Yeah, we'll get to it later, but I am really coming around to the idea that just 5 guys and LIJ feud for the last 2 months has been one of the best things of 2023. It has been a lot of fun, these guys going against each other for the last couple of weeks.
And Clark Connors is Colin's other pick to win if Speedball Mike Bailey does not. Yeah, this is the fun part, isn't it? I mean, for the first time in years, we really have 5 or 6 guys that could legitimately win this tournament, and plenty of different combinations for the finals right there. So Of course, once they announce all those cards at Dontaku, we're going to really parse them out here on the show and see what
we're
we
going
can
to need
figure
to
out.
fill out 90 minutes next week with one show to review and a bunch of cards to preview.
Exactly right. So, yeah. All right. Well, there you go. So that's Best of Super Juniors coming. And, of course, that's always one of the better tournaments of the year, even in years where the lineups aren't everything you'd hope for. But even the pandemic lineups, they were good shows. They were good wrestling matches. Yeah. And all the people, even the ones we discounted from winning, like Wato, Yo, and Bushi, those are really good workers. Really good workers. So
we're taking educated guesses here, but everyone's right when they say that this is a fucking stacked card.
Yeah.
And there are going to be very few stinkers that we are going to be talking about during the month of May.
Yeah, we didn't even discuss KUSHIDA as one of the better junior heavyweights in the last generation.
Back after 5 years, 6 years.
Very cool. After his sojourn to the WWE and WWE obscurity, and he's back in a place where he's appreciated. Same with Leo. He's in a company that can appreciate what he does.
Just feels right them being here. Just feels right.
It does, yeah.
Should we get to the main card of Dontaku?
Let's do it because we had some key matches and some title matches. I'm going to get into my notes here, which are in a different spot than usual here in this thing. So we were at Hiroshima Sun Plaza, which is that is Naito's second home here. Of course, he has been adopted by the Hiroshima Carp, Japanese baseball team. They tend to wear LIJ gear. He tends to wear Hiroshima Carp jerseys once again, throws out the first pitch of their games fairly often. So even though Naito is from Tokyo, he's an adopted son of Hiroshima. So he main evented against he had a big match. He had a special match against Toki. The main event of that one was Takahashi and Kanemaru. But it was at the Hiroshima Sun Plaza on the 27th, and it drew 1,614. So strong crowds overall, not necessarily sold out everywhere, but strong crowds leading up to Dontaku, which from what I hear does have a very solid advance. So Hiroshima Sun Plaza, there's a full card here of preview tags and things, but the main things we want to talk about were these key matches. And Doki and Naito went 15 minutes and 55 seconds. Naito did get the win right there, but I mentioned there was a lot of respect given to Doki afterwards. Doki attacked before the bell. There was a long setup to a long build-up to a daybreak move. That's the thing where he kind of springboards himself over the top rope and DDTs his opponent. Really good looking move. He had a long setup for that, and then he hit it on Naito. Very dramatic kick out there. He turned a Death Valley driver, Naito did, into a Destino, which looked really good. And that was a kick out from Doki, but he was in big trouble. That was at the 10-minute mark. Had a really nice wheelbarrow German suplex from Doki countered into a Valencia. And then the Destino for the win. Again, we mentioned it on the show last week. Doki just having a major singles match with Tetsuya Naito is a career boost for him. And to have a really good match was his job here. Not to beat him, not to make any other impression, except to have a big match in a big spot and come through. And I think he did his job. Naito got a win in his adopted home. And I think this did exactly what it was supposed to do. And I think Doki's taken a little more seriously.
So I said just a couple minutes ago that this feud has been really delightful and just kind of a surprise. When just 4 guys came around and we were just like, what is this? Like, okay, let's entertain this. Let's see what they do with this. And then we had the cup, and then the SANADA joined, and then he won the title. And all of a sudden, everyone had just kind of like, what? Oh, we got to take these guys seriously. Or at least the company is taking just 5 guys seriously, and we need to start really paying attention to what they have planned. You know, I gotta admit, I do get a chuckle about the 5-guy memes that they do whenever they go to the restaurants and all that, and just leaning into it hard and nobody really paying attention or caring about any copyright issues or anything like that. Just have fun with it. So this is just an example of that, and we've had a number of matches, and we'll talk about a number of matches over the last week in which LIJ in the ring has elevated just 5 guys in the ring the same way that just 5 guys has been tried to be elevated outside of the ring with the prominence of the new stable. This is the kind of feud that they need to be given the sense of like, hey, we belong here too. We are a viable stable, and the audience is behind it. And I'm just Like, I didn't think this was going to happen. I will flat out say that I didn't think that this stable would be as successful as it is now, but they are behind this stable. And it is a motley crew of guys, but let's drop a rocket and see what happens.
And, of course, Doki going to be part of the Best of the Super Juniors. We'll have to see how far he goes. Colin's asking here, by the way, do they do English commentary for Best of Super Juniors? They announced that Kevin Kelly is going to be doing, and Chris Charlton for most of the shows anyway when they're in Tokyo. Kevin and Chris will be doing those shows live. So Kevin's going to be traveling out to Japan and doing English commentary for Best of the Super Juniors. Front to back, I think the whole tournament is going to be live with English commentary. Won't have to wait a few days, which is great.
Dontaku is remote live, and then the Super Juniors will all be live.
There you have it. So, yeah. All right. Now, moving on in that show there, we had the big one between Naito and Doki. We also had Kevin Knight and Kushida challenging Akira and TJP, Francesco Akira, that is, Catch 2-2 for the junior heavyweight tag team titles.
Jet Setters.
Yeah, the Jet Setters. And, of course, we talked about this would be a way to launch Kevin Knight. Kushida's a made man in New Japan, always will be. And they've done what they need to do with TJP and Akira, so this could be a way of launching Kevin Knight. Turned out it was. Now, it wasn't a perfect match. There were some awkward moments, particularly with Knight. He wasn't all the way there, and some of the not all the smoothness is there, but boy, he's really
maybe a little nervous in a big match feel.
Yeah, and it was clearly the biggest match of the guy's life, not even close. He hasn't had all that many. The guy was a young lion not all that long ago, and I'm not trying to discount him at all. The man's fantastic. He's a really talented guy, incredibly athletic, and has really picked up on a lot. His timing is better than most at this stage in their career. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Kevin Knight's going to do. But there were some little hiccups here.
TJP split his eyebrow in this, and it changed the mood of the match. It made it feel like a gritty war for the junior heavyweight titles. And I think it kind of helped it. Like, it was, fortunate juice, I guess you call it.
Fortuitous juice is what Dusty wrote. It's what Dusty used to call it. Fortuitous juice.
I definitely think that happened in this match. So walk us through what happened.
Yeah, so we had Kushida went to, hey, I got to read my own handwriting now. I usually have these typed out, but we're in a hotel. Oh, my goodness. Kushida went to the wrong corner at one point to make a tag from Kevin Knight. The ref said, no, you're actually in that corner. You have to get that right. And he did. He ran around there. Knight went for a Hurricane Rana off the ropes on TJP. Now, this is something that really only Knight can do. He sets his opponent up on the top turnbuckle, or he's already there, and Knight can just run, plant, jump up, and Hurricane Rana a man off the top turnbuckle. He did it on TJP, and except this time, Akira grabbed TJP and stopped him from flying off. So it was a way of kind of countering that move. But then he nailed it a little bit later and hit on Akira. And then they did this move. Now, let's talk about this move, Jeremy. You know the one I'm talking about, right?
I think so.
It's not working. It's breakdance. It's literally a breakdancing move. This is where it came from. I'm old enough to remember breakdancing in the 80s, Electric Boogaloo, Turbo. But it is a breakdancing move where a guy stands there, the other guy comes up with a way, either through cartwheels, flips, or however else you want to do it. It's all very athletic, where they're holding each other's ankles and rolling across the ring together. The issue is you can't get any momentum doing it. It doesn't pick up speed. It's not like a snowball. They're really struggling to get there, and so it just comes off as slowing everybody down, and then someone has to it's like when you try to do a catapult and the guy doesn't quite get up for it. You know what I'm talking about, the catapult into the turnbuckle, and it doesn't quite work right, and it just looks really bad. This move isn't working for him.
Fumbling into the direction.
So he hit that into an DDT. They did hit it, though. They hit it. It didn't look great, but they hit it. The breakdancing move on Akira, and got the pin on him out of that. So, like I said, a couple of little hiccups right there, but three excellent workers, and then a guy, Kevin Knight, who is well on the way to being an excellent worker on his own. And working with Kushida is only going to help. Working with guys like TJP and Francesco Akira, is only going to help. We have new junior tag team champions. Everyone is taking Kevin Knight seriously. He's doing really well in the backstage comments also. He's a strong talker. So, my goodness, I mean, this guy is there are things about Kevin Knight that remind me a little bit about Carmelo Hayes.
Oh my God! I was going to tell you the same thing.
Yeah, and not that they do not have the same working style, but as far as just looking at a guy and just thinking, there's really nothing here that can't be developed into something special. He's not missing anything. He just needs to develop it.
I was like, if you took Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams and you combine them into one person, you would get Kevin Knight.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Those two together. But yeah, it's not there's just nothing missing.
He's the real deal. He is a guy that WWE would pay money for in about 5 years. If his momentum continues the way that it is, the future is absolutely bright for them.
Yeah, and I want to bring up something that Brad just brought up, because it is part of the show, something we had not seen before. At the beginning of this show, for both title matches, and we're about to talk about the other one, Hiromu versus Kanemaru, and then this one here, they brought out the champions and challengers for an in-ring contract signing that did not at the table in the ring that didn't turn into a brawl. They did not follow the WWE blueprint about this. But for this,
it was their press conference that they normally do, but they just did it before the show.
Yeah, what do you think? Did you like this? Is this something you would like to see going forward?
It was fine. I had to admit, I looked at it like, I don't have time for this, and I just kind of moved on. But I was like,
it wasn't live in English, so we had no idea what they were saying.
I was just like, okay, so we're title signing. This is cool. I'd never seen it on the English ones. I assumed it was relatively new, because most of the time before we do this show, I would just wait, watch an English translation, or fast forward to here or there back to the thing. So it was like, this was the first time I'd seen it, but I didn't know if they had done this a long, long time ago or anything. So I was like, that's cool, something to pay attention to.
Yeah, it's new. I don't know. I don't necessarily want them running angles off of that too much. Stardom actually does more physical angles in their press conferences than even New Japan does. New Japan often does talking, and sometimes some really good talking at those press conferences. Not never. Once in a while, there's a little bit of physicality there, but we've seen Stardom actually do more of that. And of course, WWE, you can practically set your watch by those, because they do it the exact same way every single time, virtually. So I don't know if I want to see it all the time.
Sure.
But once in a while, I suppose for here it was okay because we didn't get the normal press conference.
I would say that it is important to make the title feel important, and this is doing that. Okay. But for me personally, the importance of watching a press conference for a New Japan show consists primarily of the Wrestle Kingdom press conference, the Dominion press conference, potentially the G1 press conference, and then there's one or two around there that for whatever reason I don't want to check out because of a hot match. It's not like, if I'm watching the show, I'm already into the match. I don't need the contract signing because I'm already here for it. But for the sake of a presentation, I get why they're doing it, but it's window dressing for me.
It is strange to do it the day of. I mean, everyone's already bought the ticket, literally.
Yes.
They're sitting there.
What happens if they decide they don't want to do the match?
Yeah,
do they just give up the title? Like, here you go. He won't cut the title. You get the title now.
Yeah, a little odd, but once in a while, right? Once in a while.
Sure. Suspension of belief and all that.
After that, we have the match for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship, Hiromu Takahashi and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. So this is another just five guys and LIJ matchup. And I want to talk about the logistics of Hiromu Takahashi's alien ring jacket. So this is the jacket he comes out with. You can see a little bit of it there in the picture. It's got all the little branches with little alien eyeballs hanging off it right there. Very scary. And, he comes out. I just want to know a couple of things here, Jeremy. I want to know how the hell he transports that to the arena. Does it have a case? Is there a giant bag? Is it delicate? Does it come apart? Because I keep watching this jacket, and it's got like 6 or 8 or 9 of these things coming off, and they come out in the little eyeballs that surround Hiromu, like he's being, like this alien is growing out of his back or something like that. And that jacket has to be really hard to transport without messing it up.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I'm trying to think about the logistics here. I'm imagining either you hang it in the truck along with the rest of the ring set stuff in a nice delicate corner, or you take apart the back and you unscrew all the eyeballs and you put them in a briefcase, like candy canes here or there, and then you could fold up the rest of the jacket. But you know what? Honestly, with Legend of Zelda coming out in a week, this doesn't even bat an eye for me, and I'm just getting more hyped for Legend of Zelda when I see this thing. So just keep talking, and I'm going to be talking about Zelda while we do it.
I was just curious about that because it's such a cool looking thing. It really is a badass jacket right there. But I just don't know how it
is out cooling Okada's jacket.
I would absolutely not entrust it to the ring crew though. They can't even tie the Yoshinoya pad on correctly. That thing comes off every single time. Too easy. Anyway, the match begins. Now this is one they had to work hard to convince us that Kanemaru was a credible challenger. This is the deal they have to do with Hiromu all the time. There just aren't that many people on Hiromu's level, so Hiromu has to try to convince us that his opponent is. And of course, they did this one with knee and leg work. Makes perfect sense. Kanemaru uses the figure 4, and he went right to work on that knee and the leg throughout the match. Did a lot of count-out teases, which was kind of cool. They're good at them. So they teased the thing that Kanemaru would do something nasty to his leg on the outside, and Hiromu was really fighting harder each time, getting a little bit closer to that 20 count before sliding back in at the last possible second. And Red Shoes actually bumped a little bit, and Kanemaru went for the Suntory. And he tried to do it. However, he super kicked it right out of Kanemaru's face. And it all went flying, hit a time bomb for 2. There was a jumping DDT off a turnbuckle for 2. Brainbuster for 2.9 on Hiromu. Let me tell you what, Kanemaru hit a brainbuster, and Hiromu did a wonderful job of kicking out at the very, very last millisecond.
The audience bit.
Yeah. Figure 4 spots. There were plenty of those again where Hiromu was really selling the leg hard. And there was a long battle to get a suplex. And he managed to hit the brainbuster at the 30-minute mark. Near fall exchange there. And then Time Bomb 2 won it shortly after a very hard lariat that he's apparently learned from Shingo Takagi. It looked so good, the announcers even called it a pumping bomber on Japanese commentary. So, and there it was. So a long match. Let me get the time on that one because it went a while and it did not feel like it was
1 minute, 58 seconds.
Takahashi and Kanemaru, 31:58. 31:58 on Takahashi and Kanemaru there. So long match, but again, these two are really, really good. And I think Hiromu, like you said, did a good job of getting people to think that it was actually going to happen. And Takahashi retains. He will go into this match with SANADA Dontaku as the junior champion. And then also, because that title is not on the line at Dontaku, he'll be the champion going into Best of Super Juniors. What did you think of this one? Again, Kanemaru, one of the older hands, but the man knows every trick, and he had 100 different ways to attack that knee and the leg, and it bled right into the story.
It's a lot of parallels to what you're saying about the match with Naito. He had to have a match to elevate his stable and to make him feel like a contender and to have the big fight. A lot of people did not feel like he was going to win this title. There were, like you could logic yourself into, Hiromu could lose before challenging for the other one and make it seem like he could really win the other one. But that theory falls apart when you really scrutinize it. You don't want to make your challenger look like a geek right before he goes into his IWGP title match. So, a lot of parallels to that. He stepped up. Just 5 guys are stepping up. I'm waiting to see what Taka Michinoku does to earn his spot in this stable, because right now the other guys are doing all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, and it's Taka has been at the very bottom of the Suzuki-gun lineup for a long time, so it's going to be tricky to figure out a way to get him in there. Maybe they will. Who knows? But I think it says a lot that they didn't bother to put him into Super Juniors this year. As far as Taka might be more of a talker, and really before he started wrestling and losing all the time for Suzuki-gun, he was basically Zack Sabre's mouthpiece for about a year. Mm-hmm. Where he would only wrestle occasionally, but he was mostly there to cut promos on behalf of Zack. Now, of course, Zack doesn't need anyone to cut promos for him. Back then he did, and it helped him. But yeah, and now he could be the mouthpiece. He could be a manager for him. He could be the ghetto for just 5 guys, and that would be fine. Taka's good at it.
Could there be a 5th guy and Taka just be the mouthpiece for 5 other guys?
You could do that. Yeah, why not?
Maybe there's another guy coming our way.
You never know. Yeah, and so there we go with that. So that was the show in Hiroshima. We're going to move on to Kagoshima now. That was a couple of days later on the 29th. 2,120 folks showed up at Kagoshima. They're another good, strong crowd. And we had some things going on the undercard there, mostly preview tags again. And a lot of post-match beats downs from Bullet Club on guys like Tama Tonga, Hikuleo. There was a lot of that type of thing. We also had, of course, the constant clashes between the Speaking of Strong Style group and Okada. And of course, Ishii and Desperado are particularly peeved at one another, so there's a lot of that going on, and that would lead into some events later on in the week. But we're going to go is there anything you wanted to add from the undercard there, or should we go right to the IWGP?
It honestly just felt like we were at let's get to Dontaku because we are done building all of these cards, and we are spinning our wheels. There's a lot of wheel spinning.
Well, let's just go right to that tag team title match because it was terrific. To determine the best tag team in Australia via the IWGP Championship, TMDK, that's Shane Haste and Mikey Nicholls, been around a few more years in Aussie Open. Really, Aussie Open was considered the new TMDK when they came up. They said, well, these guys are really good. It's like another TMDK. So now we see them clash for the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Championship. The strong title is not on the line in this one. It's just the IWGP belts. Yeah, there was a lot of selling from Kyle Fletcher early in this one. This was mostly Haste and Nicholls working over Kyle, so he played Ricky Morton for about the first 10 minutes. But then after that, there were some great back and forth sequences, and these guys are all very smooth. These are two very smooth tag teams, and it really came through there. Nicholls, Nicholls hit a big move when the Aussies. Oh yes, when the Aussie Open tried that front back clothesline, where one clotheslines him in the front, one clotheslines him in the back. And he managed to get out of that. And then he threw some hard chops after firing up there. Nicholls managed to avoid that move a couple of times. And Haste got a body block off the top and then a tope con hilo to rally TMDK. And then TMDK used the Coriolis on Fletcher. But Davis broke it up, shoving Nicholls into the pile.
I love that picture of them using their own finisher on him.
Yeah, very clever right there. And TMDK then hit the assisted drop off of Nicholls' shoulders. That's where Nicholls has the guy up almost like he's going to power slam him. And instead, Haste jumps off and helps him drive him face first into the mat there. The good-looking move right there. And that was used. Fletcher was in peril for most of the later part of the match, too, selling the beating he had taken earlier. And Coriolis' attempt on Haste was broken up by Nicholls there. And then Aussie Open hit pile drivers on each. Mm-hmm. That was Davis hitting his tombstones on each. That left Shane Haste isolated. Then they did hit the front-back clotheslines that they had been working so hard to avoid. Clothesline on Haste, and then the Coriolis for the win. And handshakes afterwards. It was all
babyface, super babyfacey.
Yeah, all sportsmanship. And afterwards, Nicholls and Haste talked in backstage comments about how proud they were of Fletcher and Davis for carrying on Australian tag team wrestling into the future. This was a pure passing of the torch in the most effective way there.
It was.
And so,
holy crap, the dominance of Aussie Open finishing off this team. It wasn't like they scraped by and won them. There came a point where Aussie Open had it, and they dismantled them until they were done.
Yeah. So that was it was a very, very good match. It was a terrific match, and it's one that just sets up Aussie Open as, for my money, one of the very best teams in wrestling right now, and it certainly portrays them as the very best tag team in New Japan. So,
where is it? There it is.
So
always on hand.
Aussie Open tag team of 2023 for Jeremy. Now, there was some stuff afterwards here. So, Bishamon came out to challenge. Now, when Bishamon came out, I just wait a minute. We just saw that. Well, we didn't have to wait long to figure out what the real angle was here. We ended up getting House of Torture running out and attacking everybody. They attacked Bishamon. They attacked Aussie Open. They even beat down Henare and Okan, who were out there seconding the Aussie Open team for United Empire. Everybody's down at the end except Yujiro and Evil.
Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
Well, not every match can be a classic. So I guess apparently now this might be a three-way, and I mentioned this because more than once, Bishamon, Aussie Open, and House of Torture ended up tangled up on this tour with House of Torture because they're the ones that are seen as schmucks for good reason. They've been portrayed as nothing but schmucks. They have come out on top. They've gone so far that they're even using the Garrett and the wrench on the Young Lions. Like Oscar Loibe and Oiwa have each taken the wrench and the Garrett in matches here. So they are just cheating up to their eyeballs and getting beat downs on everybody. But more than once, both Bishamon and Aussie Open have been a part of the same beatdown. So I have a feeling this could end up in some sort of three-way situation for those tag titles there.
Do you think that match would happen at Resurgence?
Maybe. I mean, they're going to have main events for the Super Junior Finals as well, because the Super Junior Finals has more than just the finals of the tournament. So it could be something there as well. But Resurgence is very, very possible. And
Aussie Open is super popular, and they do have those strong titles.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that could be something like that. They could, they could even. No, that doesn't make it.
Let's not go there.
Yeah, we're not going to. But we'll see where they go with it. But there are a couple of different places that could go. Resurgence, Super Junior Finals, all those.
I think you're probably, okay. So we're a month away from Dominion, the three top events in which these three teams could face off with each other. I'm leaning toward House of Torture and just Aussie Open being a feud, and they just kind of beat down Bishamon, and that's kind of boo-hoo. You're out of this picture right now. I think it's just going to be a one-on-one, but Dominion, as long as Aussie Open comes out dominant, that's fine. Like, if it can lead to an end of just another feud in order to put a notch in the belt of Aussie Open, because in no way, shape, or form do I think that Evil and Yujiro Takahashi are the guys to end this run. Yeah, just fine. Build up their resume.
There you go. So we'll see where that ends up. But that was how that tag team title match ended there. So it was. Then we had a heck of a war. This one was. I have an entire page of notes that I will not read all of. Don't worry. But it gives you an idea of how epic this match was. So we had Shingo Takagi against Taichi for the King of Pro Wrestling title. And Colin is, by the way, Colin's with me on this. I wish the House of Torture would just disband. Yeah, they drive me nuts too. I just don't see the value. But especially to watch these guys. The House of Torture act, the referee distractions, the sneak. This isn't stuff that New Japan does well. It always looks silly. It always looks like the referee ought to just turn around and look. He never seems to. It never really pans out. They don't do it effectively. And Yujiro's not a good wrestler. So it gets frustrating in a lot of different directions. Evil can be good if he's in there with the right guy. But this gimmick is kind of holding a lot of that back. So yeah.
This feels like you are squeezing as much blood from the stone from the stable as you can before it's really just not taken seriously anymore. Right now, Evil is feuding for the tag titles. There was a point where Evil was in the mix for the world title, and he has subjectively just gone down the card with this gimmick. So, at some point, Evil is going to be the strong champion, or the gimmick's going to be over. That's the direction we're going.
But Shingo Takagi and Taichi, here's a match that has been going on. This rivalry has been going on between these two for a while, and they've really brought some interesting things to that King of Pro Wrestling title. This was the last clash for a while because afterwards, both men talked about moving on to other things. Taichi jokingly saying, "I don't want to face this guy anymore. This hurts." And then Shingo just saying that he doesn't want to really go after that title. He's on for another challenge as well. So we'll see where.
What the hell did he need to prove with that title? Oh my God!
Yeah. So this one was I can't remember the exact name they used for it, but the whole idea was you have 5 different ways to win a match. So pinfall, submission, knockout, TKO, that's referee stoppage, and then the end countout. So you have to win the match by 3 of those ways. Now you can't get it 3 of the same thing. It has to be 3 of those 5 in different ways. So once you pin a guy, you can't pin him again. once you make him submit, you can't make him submit again. You have to get the referee to stop it and blah, blah, blah. And they really worked that stipulation really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And Brad mentions here that this match was special. The ending had me jumping from my seat. I loved it so much. Yeah, it was really fantastic. And Colin missed the match. He said he thought it was over after the tag match, so we missed this one.
There's a whole hour of programming left.
You get to go back and check it out. Check it out. So let's talk about that. So
the provisional Takagi triad match.
Triad match. Yes, thank you very much. So Shingo caught just a various pin combos right there to get the first fall, and this was just kind of rolling around on the mat in the scramble, and Shingo came up with a fall early there, so he got a pin. And then let's see. Taichi then slipped out of the last of the dragon attempt because now he'd gotten the pinfall. So I guess I don't know if he was going to try to go for a knockout, get the 10 count after somebody is down, hitting last of the dragon. But instead, he got countered into a ghetto clutch. So fairly early in the match, each had burned their pinfall. Mm-hmm. This was kind of brilliant because the way they worked the rest of the match, the finishes and possible finishes sort of led to one another. I'll get into what I mean about that. So at this point, it's 1-1, and each has the pinfall out of the way. They were exchanging a lot of hard shots, a lot of Bushido contests, that whole I'm tough, you're tough, let's see who's tougher, where you kick each other in the leg or you throw a hard clothesline. There were a lot of those hard clotheslines that they didn't sell. They just kind of crashed like two rams in nature, slamming heads. These two would just slam into each other in the middle of the ring with clotheslines that were really stiff. And eventually, there was a Black Mephisto from Taichi coming out of one of those sequences. He hits his big move, and Shingo could not make it up to the 10 count. Referee counted 10. So that's that. So back to work they go. Shingo hit a big clothesline, big pumping bomber, and last of the dragon. And Taichi meant for that pumping bomber, by the way. This is an interesting spot, wasn't it, Jerry? So really hard pumping bomber. Beautiful pumping bomber. Best pumping bomber you ever saw. It was supposed to be the finish. For reasons known only to Red Shoes Uno, even though Taichi clearly was not on his feet, and that was the rules. He had rolled up to his knees a little bit. He was selling how foggy he was. And then Red Shoes goes, no, she's back up. And they both look at him as like, you're fucking kidding.
So they had to do it.
So they had to do another move. And so they just came up with, we'll just do Last of the Dragon.
I was like, wow, they're really trying to sell this move.
Yeah.
Why? And then I was like, oh, Red Shoes fucked up.
Red Shoes messed it up. And so then they just said, well, we'll just do Made in Japan. And then he got the 10 count off of that. It looked fine. I mean, it went fine.
It was effective. It actually made the move look more devastating because you have to remember they've been going like 20, 25 minutes already kind of thing. Like the last fall took a very long time. Like they did not get to that last fall immediately.
No. And the other thing about it was now we've gotten the pin out of the way. We've gotten the knockout out of the way, the 10 count out of the way. Now we're down to what? Referee stoppage, submissions, and countouts. Both of those things work really well when both guys have been beaten to hell. And they had at this point. The other part of it is the next one was the victory. You didn't have to win by all 5. You had to win by 3 out of the 5. So a submission was possible. The referee stopping it in the same move. Any submission move, now you had 2 factors going on. Would the guy tap? Would Red Shoes stop it? And yet you still had the count out. And they teased every single one of those things over the next, 20 minutes or so. I have the time counts all here. And the 2 KOs was 25 minutes. This match went 43.
Yeah, I was saying it went another 20 minutes. There's so much drama at that end. Brad Ryder, I got it right here. This match was special. I love this so much. The ending had me jumping from my seat. So let's talk about this ending as it happened because this was pretty spectacular.
They teased all those things. I mentioned that at one point, guys were outside of the ring and they barely got in time for the count out because they were so beaten up. There was a really terrific one that Shingo had where both guys were out of the ring. Taichi definitely got in at like 18 or 19. Shingo falls over at 19, dives in, and both groups were up on the ring apron arguing with Red Shoes over whether it was 2 or 3. Interesting, we saw something here that we don't normally get, which is LIJ out at ringside with with Shingo. So they don't normally support each other the way the other groups do on that sense. Anyway,
strong faction warfare feels between the two groups. They're if you're on our team, we're your ride or die right now.
Yeah, and both guys have big moves. The stretch plum, which is an old Kawada move from All Japan Wrestling, the stretch plum. That was what Taichi used. There was a neck stretching move that Shingo used, and all of it was to the point that Hiromu Takahashi almost threw in the towel on behalf of Shingo. There were other times when some of the members of Just Five Guys were wondering if they should call it off for Taichi. Very dramatic. And in the end, they had the stretch plum on, kept wrenching it. And then finally, never quitting, never tapping out, but passing out, Red Shoes had to dramatically call for the bell and make it a TKO finish on Shingo Takagi right there. And that was how it ended. Again, going out on his sword, not quitting. So he always has that. Didn't bury Shingo. He never quit. But the referee had to save him from himself. And once again, just like we saw in the tag match, words of respect between the two afterwards in both directions. Taichi saying, I'd like to say we'll do it again sometimes, but I don't really want to fight you again. And also saying he wanted to take the King of Pro Wrestling title in his own direction. Shingo wanted to go through these triads and very
trial matches,
win various different ways. He said he wants to do something else. We'll see what that is in the future. But I mean, great stuff. These two bring out the best in each other. Taichi seems to do his best work when he's against a really stiff bruiser. I mean, if he faces Ishii, if he faces Goto, it's like you have to hit him and then it brings it out of him, and it cracks me up because I remember when he was considered a lazy junior heavyweight and the criticism wasn't totally invalid. I thought it was a little harsh at times, but it wasn't 100% invalid. As a heavyweight, no laziness, stiffness, motivated, hard work, completely. Drama. He's one of the better guys in the company, and this was one hell of a match. I love what Shingo has done with the KOPW title, and it's not a joke. It is a serious championship. I think Taichi's going to bring that forward.
Yeah, they've legitimized the title. Shingo did a great job with that over the course of the last year and a half. It feels like he had it for like a year and a half. Just matches with here, there, and everywhere. Taichi seems like the right guy to have it right now. The visual of Taichi and SANADA both with big titles, kind of a junior version of the two-man power trip, is kind of a cool visual. And, United Empire is a stable they're really getting behind. Just Five Guys is a stable they're really getting behind. They're using Chaos. They're using LIJ to do so. It is an interesting time in paradigm shift with New Japan Pro Wrestling. I don't know if this is going to remain how it's going to be for a while, but right now it is so exciting to see different acts get pushed and different directions being taken that don't leave you scratching your head.
So let's go from here into some of the notes from the last couple of days. Now that was the title matches. We didn't have any more title matches. We'll have plenty on Dontaku, which we're going to get into in a moment. But that was the title matches from the tour. But there were some interesting events. Now we had a match in Kumamoto on the 30th in front of 1,655 people. Another strong crowd there for that building. And I would say that the most interesting thing that happened in this one was in the Okada, Ishii, Yano, Honma match against Suzuki, Desperado, Ren Narita, and Oscar Loibe. Now, the match only went 11-22, and, Loibe was beaten, of course. But the key to this one was both Tomoaki Honma and Tomohiro Ishii were very interested when Okada grabbed the microphone after the match and said he was going to announce who the mystery opponent had been. It had been annoying, not really frightening, but annoying the strong style guys, no end, as that they didn't know who the opponent was. And, of course, they started saying, well, it's nobody. He can't get anybody to team with him. We knew that wasn't true. But we were curious who it was, including us. We didn't really know. And so he got on the microphone afterwards. He said, I'll tell you who X is. X, number 2, it's going to be me, Ishii, and Hiroshi Tanahashi, which made nobody happy at all. It didn't excite, speaking of strong style, who know they have to deal with an all-time legend. Even Honma had hurt feelings and marched off because Honma had been working all tour in storyline to prove his worth to Okada. And we all knew he was the underdog in that one. But
poor management skills here.
Well, Honma, yeah. And then Ishii just stormed out. So, he was kind of left holding the bag there in the middle of the ring. This is an interesting thing. It's going to be Tanahashi, Ishii, and Okada. He's got a very pissed off Chaos member there in Ishii. And you mentioned it before when we were talking about before going on. You're just seeing angle alert everywhere on this, aren't you?
I really am. It just Tanahashi coming back 2 weeks after a rib injury or 3 weeks after a rib injury is very, very curious. I do not doubt his superhuman ability to heal and that good old-fashioned recuperation for someone superhuman like Tanahashi is not out of the question. But a real good answer would be they needed him on this show for something. And I feel like we are going to find out what that is, whether it is Okada heel turn watch 23 finally touching ground, or if the storm clouds are going to continue to circle and better days ahead for all the opponents of strong style.
I wonder if Ishii is going to walk out on him. I wonder if it's Ishii that's going to leave Chaos and tell him to bugger off. I mean, what if Ishii joins strong style?
He could.
You might, right?
Yeah, why wouldn't he?
They actually could use a fourth guy. He's perfect for it. He's perfect.
Like
you can always
watching Okada like cause his own stable to self-destruct and then turning on Tanahashi out of frustration makes a lot of sense.
Just putting it out there. Just putting it out there.
Call.
That Ishii is a perfect member for strong style, fourth member for strong style. They can even do the whole thing where Ishii and Suzuki can look at each other the same way Narita and Suzuki looked at each other at first. It's like, you little rat bastard. Yeah, I know, but we both fight hard. Yeah, I respect that. I respect that too. And now they're buddies, right? And I think it could work great.
You are predicting that Okada's stable is going to fall into chaos.
Been working all week on that. I tell you what, you're not a
right
father.
there.
You're not a father, but the dad jokes are ready to go. The dad jokes are absolutely ready to go.
It was right there.
Oh, I know it. There you have it. So yeah, that was the main thing on this one. So you had
Colin Matthew here says he would like to see Ishii turn heel. Now, would that mean turning with Okada, or would you consider strong style to be a heel stable?
Let us know in the comment. We'll put the comment up and then we'll talk about it once you answer that, because that's an interesting point there. So what else out of this show here in Kumamoto did you have your eye on, Jeremy? Because I know there was the elimination match at the end between LIJ and Just Five Guys was particularly good. I mean,
that was stupidly fun.
That was really good. Yeah,
that was one of those matches where I was just like, you know what? I really feel the faction warfare here. Like, I feel like this is two groups of people that have a rivalry. It may not hate each other, but competitively want to beat each other and want to say they're the better group. And for me, I'm here for that. I don't need the elite Blackpool Combat Club level of like blood and violence to get this angle over. Just two competitive groups of wrestlers saying, you know what? I am the bad guy. Like I'm the guy and you're not. Fine. Great. Here for it.
There have been some really strong matches, by the way, on this tour. Those preview tags have been good. I wanted to mention another faction versus faction thing going on, and that's the United Empire at TMDK, up and down. We've talked about the tag team title match. But, of course, the preview stuff between Zack Sabre and Jeff Cobb have been really good. Fujita has been excellent in being the guy that fights hard but does the job in the end whenever he's been in there. So a lot of these preview tags, because certain factions are matched up with other factions that complement them very well, been really good undercards to watch too. But just fun shows overall. And right now, Brad mentions, I think the only heel stables are House of Torture and Bullet Club. Yeah, probably so. The rest seem to be either babyface or tweener. I'd say
Hontai is the only real like babyface, and everyone else has a little bit of tweener in them.
Yeah, and that's fine. They can be rivals, and I mean that's always been the thing. Like for me, my favorite period of wrestling of all time is that All Japan stuff where they didn't really have baby faces and heels, but you had people who were Tokiaki Kawada guys, people who were Misawa guys, you know, and that type of thing. So right now, I think there are probably fans who are in the SANADA corner right now. Interesting, isn't it? Because SANADA was the crowd favorite against Okada. but the crowds have been pretty solidly Hiromu leading up to this. So it just shows you how everybody's in the middle and in a good way, the way New Japan presents it works.
The audience is engaged and they're willingly getting behind whoever they want to. There are people that are just losing their mind for Shota Umino, and the same people are losing their mind for Ren Narita. Yeah. And then when they're in the ring with each other, they're deciding in the moment who they want to choose, or they're just choosing when the guy hits the other guy hard.
Yeah. And speaking of Bullet Club, Kenta is still doing the too sweet with fans during entrances while Finlay walks behind him, not feeling it. Brad is right. Correct. He's Finlay is just on a different level of fan contempt right now than the rest of Bullet Club. And of course, Kenta, it especially helps. You'll definitely get a too sweet from Kenta if you buy his book.
Finlay is the ultimate get off my lawn.
Yes, yeah, he's being, well, he's got to be the most cranky right now because he's getting himself established as the asshole leader of Bullet Club there. But yeah, it's a fair point that the other members, and ELP was doing it before he turned. I don't think Kenta's set up for a turn yet, but they are perhaps planting some seeds in the future. You could do that. And and here's while Colin puts together his response, New Japan treats it like sports, where in real life there aren't really heel or face teams, except for the Green Bay Packers. They suck. But teams you don't like based on rivalries. I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, that's fair enough. It is. It does come down to just who your favorites are. So yeah,
tribalism is alive and well, people.
They make it work. So, and that was one. So the elimination match, of course, no surprise, that came down to Hiromu Takahashi and SANADA in the end, and Hiromu got the win there. And when SANADA climbed to the top rope to try to deliver his Muto moonsault, and Hiromu popped up, shoved him off the top rope to the floor. He took a very careful yet still dangerous fall to the floor there, and which was very intelligent of him. And anyway, that ended up being a win for Hiromu, which was probably needed going into that match.
So on the 5th, not much happened in Beppu. Yamateko, Beppushi, Oita. Attendance 1,006. There are only two things of note that I would say was interesting on that show. One was the Bolton Oleg versus Oscar Loibe match, which went to a draw. Once again, I'm going to say that dude is slated for Bullet Club at some point. Bolton Oleg has an aggressiveness about him that I feel like it would not fit in any other stable the way that he is wrestling. I can't put my finger on it other than it is just super aggressive, catch-based wrestling that feels like he just wants to hurt the other guy.
If they ever want to replace Bad Luck Fale, they've got a guy waiting.
There you go. And then Tanahashi returned at the beginning of the show to come out and do a speech, but it was all Japanese. I didn't understand a single word of it, but it appears that he is back and he is going to be participating in future events that he has been advertised for.
That's always good. I'm glad he is. I am curious the angle's going. And before we get into Dontaku and the preview for that, Colin has answered. He says, don't really have a reason why I'd like to see Ishii be a heel. I just would. When I first up to NJ and saw the guy, I thought he was a heel. Turned out I was wrong. Yeah, it is funny. His style comes off heelish, doesn't it? Just that kind of a growling, kind of snarling guy.
He's called the Stone Pitbull.
He makes it work as a babyface just so tremendously. One of the ways is his selling, which is so good. I mean, you know that he's tough. So he has a way of working to the other guy knocking him down or staggering him in those forearm exchanges. And the way he does it never looks cheesy. It always looks like, oh, got him right in the ear or something like that. He's just really, really good at that. So, and then from there, he can even play the underdog role because he's not the tallest guy in the world. And it just works as a babyface in a way that it really shouldn't.
He has made the Hogan power-up part of his everyday repertoire. Whereas Hogan would do it once at the end of the match. It's just something he does 5 times in a match to power up and get out of to move on to the next transition. It is amazing.
Oh, Brad, we have the smartest viewers. I love this. Brad, Ishii is what Clint Eastwood would be if he was a Japanese wrestler. Yes!
I met Clint Eastwood. That guy's a dick.
Really? You met Clint? And and he's a jerk? Oh, man.
He is an old man who lives in Northern California and is very well-to-do and does not have a whole lot of time for people wasting his time. And that is the polite way of putting it.
All right, I got you. All right, well, there you go. Hopefully Ishii's friendlier.
I can't believe I just said that on the air.
No, that's all right. Well, Clint's a weekly viewer of Speaking of Strong.
Going to get back to Clint.
This is going to get right back to
Carmel Valley.
Oh yeah. He's watching right now, plotting your demise. Sad story here. We missed him, and we hardly knew you, Jeremy Finestone. Moving on to Dontaku. That's tomorrow morning. It's coming right up on top of us here.
Yeah, we were kind of bummed it wasn't going to be today this morning, so we could actually talk about it on this show.
I know. We're going to have to wait a week. How are we going to do it? It's going to be tough. Well, you and I are going to talk about it before that. We're not going to be able to wait a week, but we'll do it on the air here next Tuesday and really break it down.
This is the first thing that frustrates me about Dontaku. The announcement of the Ryohei Oiwa hat trick challenge.
Yeah, what the heck? What the heck, guys? You're going to put this thing on here where Oiwa goes, and he gets a TV title shot if he gets through it. So it's a gauntlet match, basically, isn't it? With Yuto Nakashima, Oscar Loibe, and Bolton Oleg. If he wins it, TV title shot, not going to be on the broadcast. Strictly going to be for the live crowd there. So
if he can win 1, 2, or 3 of the matches, 5-minute matches, if he can win 1, 2, or 3 of these 5-minute matches, he could come away with some delicious prizes of Yakiniku barbecue, with the grand prize of 200,000 yen worth of Met and an NJPW World TV title shot if he scores all 3 victories. Okay. So
that's a lot of Met.
I just hope he gets the barbecue, honestly. Homeboy needs to put some muscle on.
You don't want the 200. You want to not the 200.
I don't see him getting past Bolton Oleg, but if he can get past Yuto Nakashima and get some meat, maybe he can meet up and protein up and get through Bolton. In the future.
We're assuming the Met means to meet. They had the Met. Speaking of the Met, by the way, they had the Met Gala out here, the big Met Gala. So every star is in town in New York right now, wearing their most ridiculous outfits. And so that was just last night.
On Broadway with the stars.
I know it. I've been running around all day trying to find Sydney Sweeney, and no luck yet. Doggone it! I tell you what. So, and if I do see her, I maintain my court-mandated 500-foot distance, I promise. So there you go. We have the Oiwa Gauntlet match. But let's go over the undercard, and then we'll get to the big matches here. We have Toru Yano and Bishamon, so that's Goto and Yoshihashi, against House of Torture. So Goto, Sho, Evil, and Yujiro Takahashi. And right now, if they're building up Evil and Yujiro for a tag team title shot, I have a feeling it might go their way via some form of chicanery or cheating. They could always beat Dick Togo and do a beatdown afterwards too. So I suppose this one could really go either way.
They're really trying to build up Evil and Yujiro Takahashi for that tag title match, because I imagine they're probably going to get the win on that side.
And we have, again, this is a little bit awkward because we've already had this. It's like a preview tag match, but we've already had the match. And there's a couple of these here. So, of course, Aussie Open has already turned back the challenge of TMDK, but they're going to wrestle again. It's going to be Shane Haste, Mikey Nicholls, and Fujita against Great-O-Khan, Kyle Fletcher, and Mark Davis. This does not look good for Fujita as far as the results go, but it'll probably be a darn good match.
Yeah, I kind of feel like you're right. Fujita's in a lot of danger here. Watch out, little Fujita. Okan might eat you. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun match. I'm always here for Aussie Open. It is clear between the guys in the forefront of this match that they're all going to be capable of doing out great stuff. But it's an undercard match. The main stuff is already delivered, and we shall see what happens afterwards.
Kevin Knight, Kushida, and Shota Umino against Aaron Henare, Francesco Akira, and TJP in another match that is basically a preview tag, a post-view tag of a match, a title match that's already happened. So Knight, Kushida, and Umino, that's an interesting group together right there. Again, this is going to be another really good match, and we'll just have to see who ends up doing the job and if there's some sort of angle coming out in the future, possibly. Who knows? But 6 very capable guys, and it'll be a good match.
Putting Henare and Shota Umino together is very curious, and I'm wondering if there are more plans for that going into the future.
Yeah, there's a lot they could do with Henare. I mean, any babyface champion, aside from the world heavyweight title, he's not ready for not at a SANADA level yet, but you could do King of Pro Wrestling with Henare would make a lot of sense. He just challenged for it, but there are places to go with Henare. I think he's on the way up as well there. So
he's on the way up, but he's also a guy that Shota should be beating on his way up as well. So it is a curious placement of people in this match. Shota and Kushida and Kevin Knight is not a trio that I would have immediately gravitated towards, but I mean, to an end.
Yeah, and they're still doing that slow burn with Shota, aren't they? Where he's just not quite getting the big wins. But maybe this will be a small win that he can grab here.
How about that John Cena level get up that he came out with in the baseball jersey and the backwards cap and the puffy pants? Like, man, that the crowd loves it. They love it.
He's getting over with that. We have Doki, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and Taichi against Shingo, Naito, and Bushi. And just like Fujita was in major trouble in his match, Bushi's in some trouble here. Although Kanemaru might do the job, but probably not, coming right off a title shot. So either way, again, this just goes to the faction rivalry here. Doesn't matter who wins this and who loses this one so much. It'll just be a good match on the show.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards LAJ kind of getting a little bit of shine back since just 5 guys have been winning a lot of matches, and they're probably winning another one tonight.
And then we will have the title matches, and we'll begin with this one, the strong title of Kenta against Hikuleo. Now, Hikuleo's an underdog in this one, certainly. They haven't really built him up to take the title off Kenta. We can't discount it, though, because it's been really one-sided as far as post-match beatdowns go. And I think it's interesting, Jeremy, that they have been careful almost to put Kenta over like it's Kenta that's going to have to still look strong coming out of this one. Hikuleo's just been taking ass whooping after ass whooping after ass whooping, and post-match beatdown after post-match beatdown. Then he has a title match, and he hasn't really come out on top of much of any of this. So, again, for the strong title, Kenta is a good gatekeeper, you've mentioned before. Do you think it's time for them to switch it and put it on Hikuleo to make the run, or are we seeing a retention here?
I'm going to lean towards retention. I do not feel that Hikuleo is strong enough to be a title holder in general, because it would require him to have different matches that he has now. Maybe that's something that he needs to do and he needs to have, but I don't know. I just feel like if Tama Tonga doesn't have that other title and Tangaloa potentially could be returning soon, the 3 guys together just doing their stuff and better days ahead seems a better plan than putting the strong title on Hikuleo while his brothers are coming around. Do you think Tangaloa could be the guy in that video, by the way, the one that's coming soon?
Possible.
That was another guy that came across my radar the other day, and I just figured I'd mention it.
I'm still hoping for Yota Tsuji in that role, but
I am too. But yeah, hypothetically speaking, I could see Hikuleo winning because he hasn't, and I could see an argument for him being time. But my instinct says that Kenta is better suited for that belt right now.
Yeah, there are things that you can also do with Kenta in the United States. He's actually a bit of a draw, maybe not on the level of some of the other people, certainly not on the level of Monet or some of the other folks there, but for the strong things, bringing Kenta to the United States after having his run in WWE and things makes a lot of sense. The argument for Hikuleo, like you said, is just to try to launch him into something on strong there. So next up, we have the television title. This is a 15-minute sprint match between Zack Sabre Jr. and Jeff Cobb. Very much looking forward to this one. Of course, Zach's a great opponent for Jeff, isn't it? Because he can take almost any power move, and Jeff can give him almost any power move. But then there's always that hint of danger for Jeff that Zach could come up with some really wild and strange counter and end up having him twisted around in knots. We've seen hints and little teases of things like that in their preview tags where he's turning power moves into things like sleepers and submissions. It's going to be the biggest challenge of his TV title run next. The argument for switching the title here would, I think, be simply to just go a different direction with Zach. If you have something else for Zach, more than anything else, and make Cobb the gatekeeper. And it's possible they could be doing that, but Cobb doing quick, fast-paced 15-minute matches doesn't make a ton of sense to me. So I sense that somehow Zach's either going to get a draw or come out of this maybe with a count-out win or sneak a pin in somehow or something in that nature. I feel like Zach's still going to be the TV champion after this.
I tend to agree with you. I don't think that a 15-minute sprint is exactly Jeff Cobb's wheelhouse, but it is to show in his versatility that he is capable of doing it. He was doing matches like that all earlier in his career in Lucha Underground and stuff like that. There was never a match that was shorter than longer than 15 minutes when he was doing them back then. And he's way better now than he was back then. So as the number 2 of United Empire, it would be strange to take the number 1 guy from another stable and belt the number 2 guy of another one. But this is also the one of the top stables and one of the top stars in New Japan that we're talking about. It is not... Okay, so Jeff Cobb is a guy that at any given night could win a title on any given show.
Okay.
And that is my argument for him winning, but I don't think this is the night that he is going to win it on any given show.
And Brad's killing me here. This could be the first time limit draw and coin toss. There's no coin toss anymore. That was just
Reach
the tournament.
it, brother.
Just the tournament. It's only in the tournament.
Testify.
It's not a bad finish here for the 15-minute draw for Zack to retain and keep it, not to have.
I felt so bad. There was another show that John LaRocca did where he referenced the coin toss, and I was like, "This is entirely my fault."
It's not a thing. It's not a thing. It was only in the tournament.
It was on Wrestling Observer F4W. It was on the main flagship thing, and I gave him information, and he parroted it off, and I was just like, "I made a huge tiny mistake."
There you go. So, but draw is definitely in play here for that. So, never open weight 6-man title angle alert, as we've been thinking. Minoru Suzuki, Ren Narita, and Desperado against Okada, Ishii, and Tanahashi. Now, as we mentioned, this could be a lot of different things. Could be the beginning of an Okada heel turn. It could be Ishii being so frustrated that he walks out. It could be simply Okada, Ishii, and Tanahashi finding newfound respect for one another and winning this thing. There's a lot of ways it could go. Could also, of course, be a retention that could cause more tension on the challenger side. So the argument for keeping Suzuki, Narita, and Desperado as the 6-man champs only is that it's building up, I think, very effectively Ren Narita as somebody who's on that level. And it's just a really good bunch of workers over there. Suzuki, Desperado, and Narita. So I would have no problem with them retaining the title and it causing that tension. It doesn't have to boil over at Dontaku. You could build things up for Dominion or wherever. There's a lot of ways you could do it. If Okada, Ishii, and Tanahashi take it, you would still have that tension, wouldn't you, as a possibility. So, again, this one could go either way. It just kind of depends on where they're going with the angle and who's going to end up angry at who. And I think somehow that Okada, Ishii, and Tanahashi could end up angrier at each other than they are with Strong Style right now.
I think Strong Style is on a much more unified page, and that is going to benefit them greatly into this match. Now, we talked earlier that Ishii could walk out on Okada. Now, what if Okada walked out on Ishii and El Desperado got the win over Ishii in the match, leading back to Ishii beating El Desperado at Capital Collision 3 weeks ago?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of ways it could go here. And I do find it's interesting that at the last week, they've woven Ishii into this storyline, who really wasn't there. It was Okada and 2 X's. And then all of a sudden, Ishii is one of the X's. And then all of a sudden, he's not happy about the other one. He said, if it's Tanahashi, I'm out. And then they announced that it's Tanahashi. He didn't withdraw. He's still in it. It feels like this angle might be more about him than it is the other two. Maybe we're just misreading this, but it feels
Okada's been a dick, and at some point his dickness is going to get real bad.
It's going to make somebody snap on him. And right now Narita just might be the kindling that leads to the fire, but it has the feel of Ishii has had very little to do other than just have good matches, which is a fine job to have, right? But he hasn't really been in the mix for any titles. He has mostly gone over to AEW and just lost on Dynamite to a crowd about 1/3 of whom know who he is. He hasn't really been in the mix. So it's almost like he's been lying low, a little bit like how SANADA had been lying low for a couple of months before they triggered on him. So I'm not talking a world heavyweight title run for Ishii in the next couple months. It's not what I mean. What I think they might be doing, though, is setting up for, okay, here's what we had in mind for Ishii, which is a shakeup. He's been the second or third guy in Chaos a long time. Time to do something else.
Remember how we were talking earlier about Ishii joining Strong Style? Okada walks out on him in this match. He loses to Strong Style, and then he decides to join them.
Yeah, they offer the olive branch. They said, you're one of us. You're one of us. Deep down, you're one of us.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, could be. Never Openweight title, Tama Tonga and Davied Finlay. The build up to this has been real good. Finlay has been a proper jerk. Tama Tonga, a proper babyface going into this. I feel like that title belt right there is the one thing Finlay really needs right now. And I feel like probably accomplished that same mission. Like that was what Tama Tonga needed when he first turned babyface. I think he's held it long enough that I don't know if he needs it anymore. This feels like it's time to put it on Finlay and give that extra juice to his turn. That's just my feeling on it. If Tama Tonga retains here, I'm not going to complain. He's been a good never champion. But it feels like Finlay could use it more than he could to establish it.
The stank of the Carl Anderson run of the never title is gone.
You're never going to get over it. It'll never be over.
We're moving on. We're moving on. I'm using it as an example. We have gotten past it. The stank is gone. Tama Tonga has done well to reestablish it as a viable title. Ever since the New Japan Cup, where I saw that after a Battle in the Valley and I circled that bracket with Tama Tonga and Davied Finlay, I'm like, those dudes are fighting for the never Openweight title, and it's happening soon. It's happening, and this is the time for it to happen unless they pull the trigger on the ELP Davied Finlay feud and go with that to cost him the opportunity at the title. But I think it's far more likely that ELP is the challenger at Dominion for that title.
And that would be fine with me either direction. They could go either direction where they just make it a grudge feud without the never Openweight title, and ELP comes back and does something to Finlay to cause it. That's fine. It makes a little bit more promotional sense for Finlay to win it here. That to be the thing that boils over with ELP. Oh, you've got the never Openweight title. I can't stand that. There's no way I'm going to watch you walk around with that belt now and have him come back and challenge him for it. That does make a lot of sense right there. Like I said, job done with Tama Tonga, especially if Tonga Loa is coming back. There are things to do in that direction.
With Dominion, Forbidden Door 2, and G1, it makes a lot of sense to put Finlay in a place of prominence. But, they could go either way.
And the thing is, if they do decide to go 6-man never Openweight titles and Strong Style retains, and then if I'm doing a lot of ifs here, granted, so I'm fantasy booking in my head right there. But if Okada, Ishii, and Tanahashi are tangled up in something after not winning the never Openweight 6-man title, Gorillas of Destiny and Hikuleo make real nice challenges.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's a possibility. World Heavyweight Championship, the IWGP World Heavyweight title on the line here, SANADA and Hiromu Takahashi. Do I think that Hiromu has much of a chance in this match? I don't. The only way that Hiromu would win this is if they just really wanted to launch him into the stratosphere. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense in this time of year to do it. It doesn't make a whole lot. So I think this is going to be a win for SANADA, but having your champion win a big match that's going to be great, a really great match in a main event spot against a terrific wrestler, nothing wrong with a successful defense here either. SANADA needs to hold this thing a little while longer. It doesn't have to be a very long-term champion to get the job done. But I feel like this is going to be
It's got to have at least one title defense.
Seems like it.
This feels like a gimme for him to have the first title defense. I think that they're going to have a tremendous match. I think the outcome is pretty obvious. I was thinking about the anniversary show. I lost my train of thought there for a second. I had to recover it. I was thinking about the anniversary show back in March, and they did not have Hiromu versus Okada because they'd done it the year before. And I was like, it's really interesting. They didn't do the traditional heavyweight versus junior heavyweight match. And it looked like they had it on the books, but because of the storyline implications, it made way more sense to have a passionate version of it as former stablemates as well, competing for a title and making it a little more personal than just business.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, is that these two in particular, and I guess this is also true of Bushi and SANADA, but didn't run into each other that much, even when they ran into each other less than Naito and SANADA did, because Naito and SANADA would sometimes be in the New Japan Cup together. They would be in the same block of the G1, and sometimes they would wrestle. But being in two different weight classes, SANADA was never in Best of Super Juniors, and Hiromu's never been in the G1. So as these guys are wrestling each other in these previews, I'm watching this just going, I don't feel like I've actually seen these guys have aggressive contact with each other other than as, tag team partners in multi-man matches. And it's just the idea of seeing these two, their skills actually match up really nicely. And what SANADA does in the ring, what Hiromu does, I think this is going to be a really good match. And it dawned on me that I don't think I've even seen, when would they have even met in a tag team match against each other? Maybe it has happened. I have to look it up on Wrestling Data or something, but it's possible.
This is fresh. This is absolutely
it's very fresh. Yeah.
This match is going to over deliver from the expectations. I think people look past because the outcome is typically not in question, but there's a lot of matches that Okada had that the outcome wasn't in question, and it still didn't matter. The match was tremendous.
There you go. And it'll send him into Best of the Super Juniors. Hiromu's a made man. Yeah, it hurts him not a bit. All right. Anything else that you wanted to add, Jeremy, before we move on to this one? We're almost out of time. And then next week, of course, we're going to be looking at that Dontaku card. We'll have almost an entire week to digest it and really get an idea of our thoughts and feelings toward New Japan going forward.
Probably get some Resurgence news.
Hopefully we'll get more of a card coming after that once all these title matches are decided. Then they'll know what to do with Kenta, right? I mean, So, yeah. All right. Well, if there's nothing else to add, you want to wrap it up with anything you want to promote or plug?
No, I was on the wrap this past weekend talking the first week of the draft, pushing Gunther as my pick for the Raw World Champion going forward. So if you want to hear about why I'm right and Gunther is the pick, go find the wrap on Fight Game Media Podcast.
All right. And so here we go, Brad. Before we go, I'm interested to see what happens, mainly since tomorrow is Bullet Club Day, 10th anniversary of the formation.
Finlay's shooting down a lot of love on that one. So could just be I win a belt and you all suck.
Yeah, Finlay's definitely the Oscar the Grouch of the business right now. So with that in mind, he's Jeremy Finestone. I'm Steven Conway. Thank you for watching and listening to Speaking of Strong Style. We'll be back next week. And we'll go over Dontaku. So, and I'll be back home and in a hotel room, and not in a hotel room. I'll be back in my office where everything makes sense and I know where my stuff is. So hopefully I'll do a better job. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll be back soon.
5-Star Podcast.